So there. What was that, Arathi?
No, I've been waiting for this conversation. I was like excited about it all week. I did not know what we were going to talk about. I figured it'd be around what's going on in the world right now. But yeah. I like the surprise of it.
We do too. It's like most mornings, about 5 minutes beforehand, it's like, oh shit, we don't have anything to talk about. And that's like a joke now because we never do.
Sometimes it's our best show.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. All right. So we are live now on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. I'm sharing this back to my Facebook page and to a few other places. So if you guys want to vamp while I do that, that'd be cool.
So yeah, our friend Arathis back. We had a conversation a month ago. It was one of my favorite shows in a while.
Oh, thank you.
I think just because we got to dive into, a lot of things around, headspace and COVID and everything else. That was all like before, we evolved into a countrywide protest. Amazing, like, right? Exactly. Worldwide. Like, that, like, if we do this every month, it's not something you expect. Like, okay, well, the world's going through a crazy pandemic and everyone's kind of forgetting about it already, which continued throughout the entire course of the month. But then a month later, yeah, we're going to have a sea change, hopefully, in race relations in America. So just prepare for that. I just wouldn't have seen that coming, but I'm really excited that it happened, and I'm excited that you're here to chat with us about it. I do want to sort of drop in stuff that we just need to talk about as a show is that, like, COVID not only is not gone, but it's about to get a lot worse. Florida just hit a record. And I think we know a lot more things now than we did the last time that we were talking about it. And I know everyone's going completely crazy and everybody wants to go outside, me included, frankly. But yeah, I want to have just drop some just space in there for that, because I think that's going to be a thing that becomes kind of pivotal over the next couple of months. Anyway, so Arathi, like, how was the last couple of weeks for you?
Oh, hold on a second. I was actually looking up COVID numbers because Bloomberg has a really good, it was published yesterday, and it has a really good overview on the different numbers to look at for COVID cases. Because, one of the arguments is, yes, there are more people that are are testing positive for COVID, but there's also more testing. And I'm like, isn't there some percentage, right? And I looked it up last night, and Bloomberg has it broken down with percentage of cases with testing. They have new hospitalizations.
I need that link, because that hospitalization rate, I think that's all the marbles, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing in Utah and Arizona, like, you can't get an ICU bed in Tucson or Phoenix, like, at all. Which is crazy. So that's really, because I agree, like, the testing rates, have been increasing a lot. So, like, it makes sense that Florida would break numbers that way, even though it still means that we're, curving in the wrong direction. But hospitalization rates is kind of a way to cut through the chaff as far as what the actual result is going to be. But hospitalization rates is a lagging indicator by usually at least 5 days to a week for where we are. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So anyways, I just wanted to mention that, to look that up. I'm actually logging into YouTube so I can put the link for everybody if they want it.
Beautiful.
So anyways, I just had the thing to start. Okay. So your question was, how has this week been, or the past couple of weeks been for me?
Yeah.
Emotional, emotional. I'm not surprised. So it's been emotional and it's been uplifting at the same time. And it's been bringing back a lot of things that have happened to me in the past. And it's not about me, but when you're talking with your friends about it and you're trying to relate to them. I have the difficult conversations. I'm not one of those people that cut off people. So I have the difficult conversations with people to help them understand stuff, or just to talk to them about it, right? That have different points of view. So I would use what I went through because they could relate to me, right? And you know where we grew up, and or why you didn't grow up there, but in Newport.
He knows.
Yeah. But you know, it was a town that was, I mean, they were literally burning crosses. The KKK was burning crosses a mile away from where I lived, because I lived in Hidden Lakes. So, or I still do. My family still lives there. So Moon Lake, you know, was where everything was going on. That's
Tanglewood East, right across the street from your
neighborhood. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, so, you know, so just having those difficult conversations and talking about the stuff that's happened. But it's been, and then, you know, talking to, and like I tell people, I'm like, what I've gone through, there's been a lot of things throughout my life in different areas, in different places all around the world, is nothing compared to what Black people go through. And then talking to my friends, you know, and seeing how they're doing, my Black friends, like they're, you know, I've heard so many different anger, grief, so many different emotions that they're going through. And I've been having so many conversations about it. And then my clients are dealing with it. So it's been like a constant conversation. And it's been a lot. So, but I'm in a place where I'm like, I mean, seeing, and then I've seen myself in different ways, where I lost my cool in one conversation, which I always try to walk in my highest self. So I really didn't even care what the person said because it was upsetting. I was more upset with myself, you know, because I know how to have those conversations, right? And I had other good conversations. So it's been interesting, you know, but honestly, and then like, you got to get off social media at times, because it's just, sometimes there's just too much banter on there right now to really think about it, because you get so caught up in seeing what people post, and it's like you don't even have time to really deep dive into what's going on because you're so caught up in what people are posting. And it's like getting at you, and I'm like, I can't be there. So I had to like I haven't cut it completely, but slow down on the social media and slow down on the news this past week, because I was like, okay, enough. Because it was getting me going. I was falling for it.
Been there.
Kind of taking the opposite approach with social media this week because of the alarming number of racist posts by local business owners and community leaders that have been, you know, I don't know. I don't think necessarily they feel emboldened, although I suspect they do. But they're looking for feedback in their echo chamber, that the way they feel about, you know, all lives splatter bumper stickers is okay. And I'm not willing to give them that space. I'm the person that's going to belligerently, you know, barge into that thread and say, yeah, that's great. But no, that's not okay that you're doing that. Right. And I feel like my place in this, like I've been patiently explaining to people that if you feel some kind of way about Black Lives Matter, have you gone to their website and read the mission statement? Have you done that one basic thing? And the answer is almost universally no. And I feel like if you don't know by now what the exact intent of the phrase Black Lives Matter means, it's because you haven't bothered to find out. Like there's so much information out there about the mission statement, about why the movement started, about that it doesn't say white lives don't matter. It doesn't say Black Lives Matter more. It simply says Black Lives Matter. When you bark back all lives matter at that, doing that now, there's no excuse for not knowing that that's what's happening.
I'm going to disagree with you there, because look, the one thing I think everybody can agree on, right and left or wherever, and not even on this issue, the media sucks, right? And you have to search and do really critical thinking and search. Like whenever I'm reading something, I read 5 different articles and I'm looking at the data and going to the links of the data. But I'm very big because I know how the media is biased both ways. It's the left or the right, and everybody's in their echo chamber only listening to what they believe in, right? So they're also getting these stories about, they think they know what it means. So they're not even going to do the research because they think they already know what it means. And so, because I've seen it, look, I got caught up in it. I've seen people posting, and this is not the first time. You know, I've seen people post during this time, but I've seen it for many years now, you know,
Right.
people posting different things at different times. And I got caught up in it. Like, there is data, and I got caught up. I did do a couple of comments. I always come with love and this and that, but I did do a couple of comments on people's posts. I'm like, you know, maybe putting data or whatever. But there is real data saying that, like, you're not you per se, but the arguments or the conversations that we're having on Facebook never changes anybody's mind. Because one, things get really misconstrued in written text, then whether you're more liable to listen to somebody when you're talking to them, because there's so much more misunderstanding in when you're looking at messages. And they've done like studies on this. And look, I got caught up in it. You know,
Right.
I probably did a couple of people's, 5 people, and it was on both sides. Okay. So it wasn't on just people that were like outright crazy or making crazy statements. It was also like certain things that were really going too far about shaming and this and that, or, you know, or even just a friend talking about, who was all for the cause and talking about race, who I love, and she's all for it. She is radical. She's a white woman, so talking about what, you know, growing up in the town I did, but was saying, like, you know, as Gen X, we were more naive to think that it was going away. And I'm like, oh, hold up. I was never naive about that. You might have been naive about
Right.
that, right?
Right.
But as a person of color growing up in that town, there was no, it's going away. I never had that idea, you know? So I let her know that, and she loved me for it. It wasn't like, you know, I wasn't fighting her on it, but I was like, let me just make it clear, that might've been your perspective, but that was never Black people's perspective or people of color's perspective, you know?
Right.
That racism was going away in the 90s and stuff like that. So, you know, but because even though I really come with a lot of kindness in my comments and I'm showing all respect, and if they don't agree with me or they don't, you know, see my side, I try to give logic a chance. I have to realize, one, it does, and then I've had the difficult conversations over the phone, right? And those went a lot better, except for one, and we'll go over that another time. I mean, later on, but it was interesting. And then it was also, I mean, there's a lot of things on both sides, because this whole, if you don't post, you know, I see you if you don't post. And for the first time, like, I didn't post a lot about it. I posted twice about it. I wasn't like, I needed to get off of it, but for the first time, I was questioning myself, my involvement in this. And I'm like, and you know, like because I didn't post something, right? And it was the craziest thing, because honestly, I literally went to college and took classes on Africana studies and racism, like on systemic racism. Afterwards, I worked with the Urban League on minority overrepresentation initiatives in the juvenile justice system. You know, I ran a program there. I've literally been protesting since 1994 was my first protest I went to, you know, and it was in Boston against there was a white supremacist group, like, talking at some high school. You know, work-wise, hiring-wise, I'm very conscious about this. I've always been conscious because I learned about it. So hiring-wise, I've been super diverse, right? And everybody that I've hired. And then I've literally I go to conferences on Black thought and race, like every other year, you know? But I can go on and on. And now I'm working in advocacy initiatives on wage gap and with minority women and things like that. I'm like, why am I questioning myself? Because this is where I live, you know? But it was very interesting to fall into this psyche of, you're not doing enough, that it was questioning myself, because I wasn't posting. I'm like, whatever, you know, but I had to check myself in that.
Right. Hey, I want to roll back up to a comment that Ginny made. She asked a question here, and I actually have an answer for this question, which is shocking on its own. She asked, what is the best way to explain why Black Lives Matter is not a 501c3? Then she asked, people are donating, getting mad, it takes them to act blue. Is that because it's nonprofit restrictions, and since they politically lobby for change? That's exactly what it is. Like, we registered Pasco Proud as a 501c4 so that we could support candidates that were working for needed social change in our community, mostly around homelessness. But we wanted the freedom to be able to advocate for candidates for office that we felt like we're on message and we're actually going to work for the things that we think are critical around poverty and homelessness here. So that's what it is. By the way, also, if I read the website correctly, if you're going to start a new Black Lives Matter chapter locally, you have to be a 501c3 before they'll give you chapterhood. Really? So what that means is, so the national donations are going to go to political causes, but locally, if you raise funds, it's specifically, for charitable. So there's a difference in what local chapters do and what the national organization is doing. And I'm absolutely sure that's because they know, as a national organization, they get to count all those people and all those chapters as their political body. But they want the individual chapters to focus on doing good in the neighborhood. I'm pretty sure that's why they do that. I'm not answering for Black Lives Matter, but that's why you would not want to be a 501c3 as a national organization, because you could not then support political candidates or amendments. You couldn't advertise in favor of like Amendment 4 in Florida if you were a 501c3. So that's probably why.
And I'm assuming that your audience knows, because you guys talk about it and you're in local politics and a local activist, that your local politics matter more than your presidential politics.
Reach.
If anybody can and I feel like COVID is a great way to show this, because it didn't matter what the president said. It didn't matter what your governor said. Your city opened up depending on your mayor and your council members. And so, and then not only do they, elect the state attorney, the prosecutors, police chief, but they're the ones who go on to become senators and, members of Congress.
Yep.
They go into the House or the Senate. So this is where they start. And so if you wonder why we have all those people, is because we weren't watching them at the local level.
That's absolutely correct. And we're having what we're finding out is that the young people who are out in the street protesting right now and organizing protests around Black Lives Matter they're non-voters. Like, they're disgusted. They don't see a value in it. And that's a difficult conversation, because we know that there's two lanes here, right? You can stand on the corner in front of the courthouse all you want, but until you're in a county commission meeting, looking them in the eye and telling them what your goal is and what your demand is, they're gonna avoid it like the plague. None of them showed up for the protest at the county courthouse the other day. The sheriff co-opted the woman who organized that rally into a private meeting, and he exposed exactly who we feared he is. Here's the thing: two local organizations, at least two, CADSI, the Citizens Against Discrimination and Social Injustice, and two other groups, had lobbied throughout 2018, 2019 for a citizens oversight committee for police, that they wanted the sheriff to allow outside inspection of civil rights violations potential, like when somebody filed a complaint. And he repeatedly said there was no need for that. And he said it to the media. He said it to the press. There's no need for that. We don't have that problem in Pasco County. Meanwhile, he's fighting at least one civil rights violation lawsuit right now. So there is a problem. But yesterday, when one of the local activists, Marlo Jones, an African-American, brought that up to him, he said, oh, well, we've already started a citizens oversight committee. After telling Black activist groups for 2 years it wasn't necessary, he started one. You want to know who he appointed as the head of the Citizens Advisory Committee?
Yeah.
The sheriff's office attorney. So my point is that this organizer, when she came out of that meeting, what she said to all was, well, he listened. Yeah, he listened, and he did exactly what we told you he was probably going to do, which is undermine completely the opinions of the African-American community about what's needed, by appointing a white woman who happens to be his attorney, his department's attorney, as the head of the oh yes, please speak to my fully trained attack alligator about your civil rights complaint. You know, her job is to protect him and the department and the officers in that department from civil rights violation lawsuits. How in the world is that the right person to be in charge of a citizens oversight committee dealing with rights violations? I just like, so
it doesn't, you know, look, I don't know the local politics there. And actually, I need to talk to you more because I
Sure.
really do need to, because I've been gone, you know, from there for a long time. I did know it like maybe a decade ago, but I really don't know as much as I should right now, right? Because my parents still live there and I go back there. I've been more involved here in Miami. And I will say, with the Miami-Dade Commission, they had a commissioners meeting 2 days ago talking about this, about what's going on. And I saw a lot of, I still have to look at the replay because I couldn't go because I had clients that time and I couldn't switch it.
Right.
And I literally found out the day before, but I saw it all over social media. That's how I found out about it. I was so excited because people were like going to it to check it out.
Good.
And I go to those things, you know, there's, well, shoot, in Miami, we have so many cities within, you know, just Miami. And, you know, so it's interesting. But yeah, I think that like, though, I do feel like it's got to be brought into the conversation if we want though change, like, you know, because you can't bring in, like, if we don't bring the police into the conversation, how is it going to change? Now we can talk about budgets, right?
Right. That's
Okay,
and that's the conversation we're having
budgets,
right now. Yeah.
Right. But also if we do it from a place of look, you know, because of how can we, there's a way of like, how to get everybody involved and see the benefit for themselves. If they can see the benefit, like I love the quote there. I saw a quote from a police chief. I forgot where it was. It was somewhere. I want to say it's Texas, some like Dallas, but I don't think so. It might've been somewhere else. But you know, what's going around. And he was saying, look, we have to deal with mental health issues. We have to deal with drug issues. We have to deal with educational issues. And we weren't built for that. And it's too much on us, right? Now, if we take that perspective and are talking to the police, like, we need to help you out. Let's put this on other organizations and start the funding over there because we're going to help you out and we're going to talk to police officers. You're going to get some, like, a little bit of traction there, you know, if you take that approach. Because there's so many people, you know, in local politics and how everything, I mean, you have the police unions, you know, and then you have, you know, your commissioners and, you know, prosecutor is big, you know, that's even, you know, so all of these people are in play and they do a lot of things outside of what, you know, we know that there are a lot of good cops and they do a lot of good things because there is a lot of craziness going on. Like I was on a steering committee for a sex trafficking campaign for the Super Bowl. Right? It was because we were bringing awareness and it was a South Florida wide campaign, bringing awareness because it's one of the highest times when there's big events. And we worked really closely. There was a whole collaborative of different community organizations that would come together. We called it one team. There were so many different community organizations, the state attorney's office, and you know, the police and their special task force for this. So they are doing work that needs to be done. So, you know, it's just like, what can we take off your plate that you don't need to do?
Right.
And if you approach it from that way, it's different.
Yeah, but we started out talking about, you know, why our local electeds and state electeds are critical in this moment.
Yeah.
And like, so the barrier that Corey and I both hit is that they don't, the activists, the young activists, they don't want to hear it. They don't like they're like, nope, they just are resistant to even the idea that voting matters at all. Right. And they're very focused on the top of the ticket. But they're not paying it. Like you say, they're not paying attention to it.
You know what? All young voters are like that. Every generation when they're younger doesn't vote. Like, I mean, they have very low voter turnout. If you look at every generation, Gen X was the same way when we were in our 20s. There was low voter turnout with the boomers. When they were younger, there was low voter turnout. So it's just not a millennial and Gen Z thing. Oh, millennials aren't even that young anymore, right? So it's like Gen Z. But it's one of those things. One of the things people we're talking about is like I was upset that I couldn't go protest because I'm going to see my parents, and I want to be out there, but I don't want to bring anything to them, you know, with COVID. So I have to be extra careful.
Well, I'll tell you though, locally, I've seen more masks at protests than
Yeah.
I've seen in restaurants and grocery stores. Right.
Probably.
So, you know, people are
Definitely.
being much more conscious of that at the protests than I see anywhere else.
And that's the only reason. Like that, when you were saying what's going on with me for 2 weeks, I was like,
Right.
I want to be out there. But one thing is that I don't see, somebody brought this up because I went to this one group. It was my friend puts on in San Francisco or San Jose, Candidly Speaking. It was all, and it's been going on for 3 years talking about racial issues. So this one was very timely, and I've never been able to go because it's in person and they did it virtually. But somebody brought up there, like there's no voter turnout, voter registration going on, right? Like that should be going on with the protests. People doing voter registration. And I've seen it in some places, but I haven't seen it in all places.
Right.
And that should be like a focus, you know, with this protest is to get the vote, like get people registered.
Well, I know that outside of the protests right now, that we are having a really strong blue voter registration action happening. Like Anthony Avila and a few other people have registered hundreds of voters over the past couple of months in a concerted phone banking effort. So we're our local Democratic Party, Pasco County, has actually been out in front of that for a while now. Like I in 2018, when I was working for Our Future,
like I see somebody that voted for Mike Bilirakis.
I know.
That's okay.
Yeah. Hey, I voted for George W. Bush in his first presidential election. I did. I know. I've learned a lot
I can't say
since
anything
then.
with Bilirakis. I didn't vote for him, but my dad voted for him a lot. And you know what? I got tickets I signed up to get tickets because you went to your representative. And at the time I was back and forth between my New York and Newport Richey and stuff. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, look, let's go to the representative there. Cause I knew Miami representative, like everybody was those tickets were. So I got tickets to the inauguration for Obama in 2008.
Nice.
And I got the best spot. Like I was right up close.
Right.
I took my friend, we were right next to the Tuskegee Airmen.
So oh, wow.
Like it was crazy. And it was one of the best experiences I had. So I can't really say anything for.
So that was Mike, right? That was
older Bilirakis.
Yeah. That was Gus's dad, Mike, right?
Yeah. Mike Bilirakis. It was him. But yeah, so I can't say anything. But they had me on their records because when I was living there, I did vote there. And like, I get stuff from Gus Bilirakis all the time, I think from that. And I never voted for him. But I get robocalls.
I hear all you have to do is like sign away your rights to sue for being put in physical and health danger to go to the acceptance.
The Republican National Convention.
No, here's the thing I found out yesterday. You know, it's not at the RNC. The RNC isn't moving. The RNC convention is staying in North Carolina, and to go to the acceptance speech for the Führer, you have to drive 400 miles south to Jacksonville.
Interesting. Yeah. So, but you have to sign away your right to sue them if you get sick.
Yeah.
To attend.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure there are lots of people that are going to be willing to do that. It
literally says you promise not to hold Donald Trump responsible because irony is dead.
I missed that. I saw I was looking at what people were writing.
Yeah. Apparently, Dave missed the first part of the show because tamales, which is the best reason I could possibly think of.
Like that. That checks out.
I'm okay with that.
I'm entirely
Dave asked if I'm local. I grew up in Newport Richey. I moved there when I was 6 in 1980. And so my family's is still there. And I left when I went to college in 93. And I was back for a couple of years helping my parents out in 2009 to 2011. That's when I met Corey. And then but my base has been Miami since like 2000. So
yeah, Dave, just for historical context, Arathis' dad was both of my daughter's pediatrician when they were little. So yeah, she's pretty local.
Yeah. So I know because, it's interesting because I've gone through so many things And one of the things is whenever I go back, because I go visit my parents every couple months, you know, or more than that. I'm always going out, right? So if I go to bars and stuff, nobody ever thinks I'm from there. And when they do find out, and I'm not saying like sometimes it's nasty, sometimes it's not, you know, but a lot of people are just shocked. And I'm like, I own this town. I've been here for 40 years,
Right.
almost 40 years. My family's been there. It'll be 40 years now. We
That's
moved
crazy. Yeah.
So it's like, I've been here longer than the majority of people that live in that town. So.
Oh yeah, like Mike Moore came after. He's one of our county commissioners now.
Yeah.
He came after Kelly Smith and Brandy Goyette and me by saying these outside agitators coming into our community, yada yada. And I'm like, motherfucker, I've lived here longer than you have. You know, like you grew up in Lakeland. I don't want to hear your shit about how I'm an outside agitator. You know, I'm from the privilege system that redlined throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, you know, you can't lecture me about my belonging here. And that's the thing. I grew up, as you are well aware, you know, if you're a Hidden Lakes kid, I grew up across the street in Tanglewood East, which was also a pretty privileged neighborhood. And all of the, you know, the doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, you know, the whole Newport Richey Rotary power structure.
We lived in Hudson.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean, but you know what I mean? Like I come from that privileged system of white controlling power in the local Rotary Club, where, you know, that's produced almost all of our current judges, you know, our real estate barons, all of that came from that club. Those were my dad was a member of that club, and he was an outsider even within that club because he felt a different kind of way about civil rights and about women being involved in Rotary. You know, he was.
I actually gave a talk at the Rotary Club because I was president of Interact.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I had to give some speech at the Rotary. But I actually, even there, there was some commission meeting. That was the first time I ever spoke. I think the first I think was at the Rotary, like I did a speech was at the Rotary Club, but I also did go to the commissioner meeting talking about domestic violence. I was working with some organization.
Nice.
This was in high school, yeah. And I had to go speak on their behalf or something, you know, at some commissioner meeting.
Yeah. So our current Board of County Commissioners, their entire output of comments on what's happening right now is Catherine Starkey tweeting last week, why aren't the Philadelphia police stopping the looting of that Target store? Seriously.
I saw that.
I screen capped it. I'm the person that screen capped it.
I think I saw it. That's why. Look, I am like all about love, and I have people that think differently than me.
Right.
Because look at where we grew up. I mean, all my friends, I think I've always been progressive, right? So I have a lot of friends that think differently than me, but I am a big believer that the way to open people's minds is to come with love. Like I'm a big love person, and to come with kindness, and they will be more open to listening to you. But
I tried that for 4 or 5 years here on the homeless issue, and they've basically all blocked me from their social media accounts and won't take my phone calls. Like I try, you know, and I wasn't belligerent when this started. I had a heartfelt conversation with Mike Wells. You know, he asked me to become involved in advocating for the homeless navigation center that was going to be built, that was going to house like 80-90 people and be a way off the streets for people. And when the focus of that began to change, he shut me out of the conversation. Right. You know, and I know I can be belligerent, but I've become that way. That's the thing is that's happened because I've been like marginalized.
What happened in that conversation? Like what was going on when you got shut out?
Can I offer like tiny little bit? Like,
please do.
We are not dealing with people that have any interest at all in serving the communities that they're getting paid to lead. None. Look, they have. I mean, we've seen evidence after evidence after evidence, and quite frankly, like look at every Republican. I mean, literally every Republican except maybe 1%. I mean, we cover this all the time, and Arathi, I know the whole that frustrates you that I think the Republicans are evil, but I mean, when people show you who they are, believe them, right?
No.
So Mike Wells doesn't give a shit, and like trying to have some conversation that I know you would be absolutely capable of having with a human being that cared remotely, we could probably move something. But I don't see it. But look, and it's like there's a reason why they're protesting, and it's not because love worked.
You think that I grew up in that town? You think I have friends that don't think like that? I stayed friends with everybody. I'm one of those few people that literally is friends with the majority of people that I was friends with.
You are a better person than me, which is why you're on this show.
Okay. So I know exactly what you're talking about, who you're dealing with. I know these people. They're married to these people. They are these people. Like, I know these people, okay, that you're mentioning. So I've had these conversations. And look, there is one thing of like, yes, I was surprised. Didn't you guys have a Democratic mayor recently?
Newport Richey, city of Newport Richey.
That was surprising to me, right? And it is, getting.
But keep in mind, in West Pasco County, he is the only Democratic Party elected official.
I know. Well, hey, look, we have to take progress because that wasn't ever there. Okay, let's take the progress and acknowledge when it is, because it does show some shift, right? I would like there to be more, because that's never happened in Pasco County. So, and the demographics are changing there. So there is stuff that's happening. And the fact that, I saw that they're having protests and things like that are going on. That wasn't happening, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The fact that you have so many people behind you, I'm surprised when I look at your stuff and I saw the protests and I'm like, oh, they're happening in Newport Richey. I was so proud. Right. And that would have not happened 20 years ago. And
didn't they happen, Greg, I think, sorry for interrupting, Arathi. They had them in Brooksville as well.
The Brooksville protest was astonishing because
they had them in Brooksville.
Well, no, listen, like Brooksville, last time they tried, right? Well, Greg, you tell us. I think you were telling us
2 years ago, during the last round of Black Lives Matter protests nationally, a group of activists and protesters went to Brooksville to protest the fact that there's still a Confederate monument on the courthouse grounds at Brooksville, and they were literally assaulted and chased off by armed men in pickup trucks, like 10, 12 pickup trucks full of armed bubbas showed up to chase them off. Brooksville police stood back, did nothing. They got cast to the winds. So I was actually my concern in Brooksville was that was the one place that was going to flash over into gun violence. I was really worried about that protest. And it turned out that about 20, assholes showed up to counter protest. One of them actually dropped a machete and got himself tased and arrested because he was carrying a machete in his pants to the protest. The local business owners locked their doors across the street, and some of them put rebel flags in their windows. But the protest itself was really, really good. A young woman whose name I don't know made an impassioned speech about this is my community as well, and it's okay for me to stand on this courthouse lawn and tell you that statue has to go. So this protest in Brooksville went better than it ever has before. But I was surprised that and again, the Brooksville police were invisible. The sheriff's office had stepped in and protected the protest. So they have a much better face there than they did. But you're right, that is progress. That is progress.
So somebody asked, doesn't that confirm their biases? But Arathis my friend, I can't be racist. Okay. Let me tell you, I've had two conversations. I had two difficult conversations with because I'm not sitting there saying that they're not, right? And I'm not saying that they are. So this is what happened. And this was from people in that area, okay? Because I have close friends there. I had two different conversations. One, I went in very open and loving, and it turned out beautifully, okay? And I'll tell you what I did there. Two, I went in with a different intent, okay? And it turned out very ugly, but that was my fault because the way I approached it. The first one that was, it was somebody that was talking about All Lives Matter. It was very loving and open, and I didn't go in with the intent to change their mind. Okay, because as soon as we say we want to have open and difficult conversations, but if you just want to go in and change their mind and make sure that they say they have bias and they have these inside rays, it's not a conversation, right? And I want to listen to why they feel the way they do. So when I go in open and loving and no intent to change their mind, no expectation that I'm going to have them understanding in any way. And my pure intent is, let me listen and let me tell them about my viewpoints and my experience, not to change their mind, just from, hey, can you hear me out? This is what I think, okay? That conversation, because like I said, no intent to change their mind. That's what happens even when I was on Facebook, I went in, even though I went in loving and stuff, I forgot that. And in the conversations weren't bad, but I didn't change anybody's mind, but I went in there trying to change their mind. So when I went in with no intent, it was the most beautiful, loving conversation. I'm not saying that I changed their minds completely, but they opened their minds. They were like, I never thought of it that way. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And I definitely saw the seeds planted of them starting to look at it a different way. The other conversation I had with, and these are very close friends of mine, okay? The other conversation I went in, I already had a conversation during the Charlottesville stuff, right? And this is somebody who does stick up for a lot of things, right? And can understand that there's racism, but doesn't understand like, whatever. I'm just gonna say we have difference of opinion because I'm not gonna make assumptions there. But during the Charlottesville march with the white supremacists, we had a bad conversation. It was a quick one, it was a bad one, whatever. And so I already went there when they called me and we started talking about, I already had the intent to change their mind. I already went in thinking it was going to be a negative conversation. The other conversation, I never even went in thinking it was going to be negative. So I already went in with that, and I did pick a fight because I went in with that mentality, and it just blew up and nothing really got accomplished. There was no way that that person was going to be able to see my point of view, but it was my fault because I went in there trying to force them to say something. Right? And I didn't get them to think about it. I didn't get them to understand what's going on, you know? So I've seen the difference in the conversation. And this doesn't have to this is not even about race. Difficult conversations, first of all, stop thinking that they're gonna be difficult. I coach my clients, even in work and stuff, like people don't wanna have difficult conversations or in personal relationships. If we go into the tent with no expectations and not changing anybody's mind and just to hear where they're coming from, because what it also does is I've heard so much more right now about why people think the way they do. And I wouldn't have gotten that if I'm just going in to change their minds. Because now that I know they think the way they do, I can start talking about it to that perspective, right? Because a lot of people will be like, I've felt reverse racism. You know, and then I start and so they're like, or if people think, yeah, they'll say that it's there, or they think that it can't be changed in our lifetime, you know? Or they think like, then they might have some different beliefs. I've heard people say it didn't happen. You know, racism wasn't around, and until
Obama invented racism.
You know, and I had to sit there and
or then it went away when Obama showed up. I've heard that a bunch. Like, no, racism's over now. Like,
I had to remind everybody. I'm like, hey, remember they were burning KKK on somebody's lawn in Hidden Lakes in 1993, you know, and but you know, and then I had to remind my friends, even the liberal ones from there, like when I tell them what I went through, like I remember, barely anybody remembers this. Somebody burned KKK. This was in 1993, my senior year, on somebody's lawn in the other Hidden Lakes. My first thought was, are they going to put it on my lawn? Right. When I help bring people, when I start talking about that, right. Because everybody can admit, hey, we know the KKK was, you know, burning crosses. Everybody agrees to that. We've even seen them come with their hoods on, remember, to McDonald's randomly. Like white people were scared of the KKK.
And they adopted Moon Lake Road. They were the Adopt a Highway program organization for decades.
That was in 1993 too, where it was like Adopt a Highway. Yeah, I tell everybody, you can look it up online, you know, because I came back from college in 94. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, did it really say Ku Klux Klan? And I think there was another one on 19. There was a part of 19 too. That, but anyways, when I bring it up to my friends, they forget that it happened, right? And they don't even remember and I'm like, you know why you don't remember is because it didn't affect you. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember we were talking about who we thought did it. I remember where I saw it, where it was, which house. I remember everything. But you have to remember also that, look, you're learning different things. Like even Corey, I brought up stuff to you that you didn't realize at the time, right? Yep. 10 years ago, that might have been, so we're always evolving, and so we have to remember that to them, because we didn't know, like, especially when you're going out, you didn't know all of these things all of your life.
Right.
So you had to learn and evolve about it.
And I part of me wants to leave the door open for people around this. But definitely not on social media like that. Like I've had enough arguments on social media to know that the return on investment for that time, like that's time that none of us will ever get back. It's completely fucking pointless. Like utterly pointless.
Look, I told you the data shows don't argue with people on Facebook.
No, I know. It's like lived experience. It's really obvious. It doesn't do anything.
Okay, but so in a moment where we can't get together in the park and have a conversation on race, or we can't gather up at the local community center and have this conversation, what are our other options? Like how are we to have this conversation if we can't meet up?
I think
there's
a difference between.
Let's let Arathi tackle that one.
I think first of all, call people that you really know that you're tight with and have the conversations. Like have a personal conversation, because you know what? I feel bad that I put some people on blast. I didn't like go after them, but I'm now realizing, like, I'll put like, oh, look at this article, with all respect, And I'm like, you know what? Why did I put people on blast? Why? I do DM people a lot. And I used to do that. I used to have my conversations were private. And for some reason I got caught up in everything. And there was a couple of people, and I wasn't mean or rude. I was just like, hey, look at this. But still, when you're doing it out on public, on their feed, right? How are they going to react? They're going to get defensive. And so I would do it, I would do it privately. But I actually think, and I wanted to do this, and you know what? Maybe we should do this. It's interesting because my friend did in San Jose, but oh my God, this is so crazy. I thought about this years ago, no joke. Because like I said, race has been a big issue in my life, and I'm very into the politics and the activism for decades now. So I thought about this, maybe, I don't know, a decade or two, but having a forum on it, and we can do it virtually. And especially I've always wanted to do it in Pasco County. And having everybody come together on different sides and discuss it. And I will be the facilitator and mediator because I can get everybody to calm down, but I think that having an open discussion about it, but there has to be a lot of guidelines, to really understand it. And you have to start to really understand why people are thinking the way they are. And not to change anybody's mind, but there's a way you can facilitate that discussion. And I would talk to my friend about it. She does this keenly speaking. We can maybe do something. But
we're on board. If you organize such a thing, we're on board, and we'll,
I mean, and we could I'm wondering, maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we'd bring in different organizations, but definitely people that don't agree with each other.
Right.
I love that that's where it's going to end up. I think one thing, because Greg, I'm seeing sort of some just really preliminary evidence of this in a few different places. I am pro conflict and shaming in this moment.
You are. I mean, I love you, but I'm glad your self-awareness is great. I'm not apologizing for this in any way, shape, or form because it works. No, it doesn't.
Right? Tell that to the protests that happened after MLK got shot, because they would not have done the Civil Rights Amendment if that hadn't happened, right? Like all of the movement that's going on now is because people are throwing Molotov cocktails in the streets, and I don't in any way, shape, or form espouse that. But one thing I wanted to bring up, again, like a lot of people are getting slammed on Facebook. There's not a lot of convincing going on, and that's good because that's a waste of time. But Donald Trump is getting ratioed every single day. He used to have bots that would come in and defend him on every single fucking idiotic lie he had on Twitter. And Twitter actually closed down 32,000 state-connected Twitter accounts from the U.S., China, Russia, and Turkey, right? And actually listed out everything that they've ever done. It's in an archive you can go and look at if you want to for historical purposes, that kind of thing. But now, people who used to just be like, no, fuck this Trump, MAGA, like get out the Confederate flag, yada, yada, all of that is changing because people are fucking scared.
Well, this is
because if you step out, we're going to come to you and say, listen, you have to fucking stop that. And that has to happen in life too. Like that's the thing I didn't do in that bar, Arathi.
Okay,
like I should have been absolutely up and loud and in people's face. And I am now, to the point where like sometimes they get annoyed. And I'm like, well, fucking grow up.
Look, this is the thing. You can shame people into acting, but you can't shame people into changing their minds. That's what happened. People acted, you know, right? And we got the bill in 64, but did minds change? No, minds did not change. And
just the method of white supremacy changed.
You know,
all changed, yeah.
And so we need to change people's minds. We can sit here and create laws, and that's great. We need to do that. Don't get me wrong. We need to absolutely do that. That is the most important, to change systematic change. But until you change people's minds, it's still going to be there. And shaming does not do that. Shaming just makes them act, but it makes them angrier. They just suppress it more. Well, I'll find the data on it. Shaming does not.
No, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
You know, it doesn't change people's minds. And we want to change. Look, we need to change laws. We need to, you know, build different things. I mean, honestly, I'm going to say this. Until, it doesn't matter what race, color, anything that you are, anywhere that you are, class, all stuff, until our love of money, power, fame, and influence, until we stop valuing those things, none of it will change, because every type of institution is built on the control of that. And we all have to really deeply look, because we all value that. We put millionaires, billionaires, celebrities on pedestals. We put that as our idea of success. We always want a larger house, bigger car. You know, we want to have followers. We want to have likes. And until we change that as what we value, and we value it, and we have to look at ourselves internally, because we know we value it. If you really are going to do deep self-inquiry, we do value it. And until we all change that, all of our systems are going to be built on that, and it won't change until that. I mean, even if we like transfer power or change or dismantle, it's just somebody's gonna, like, it doesn't matter, because it's the control of that. That's my thing. So.
Well,
Dave would debate that.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I mean, even if we build another system, again, look, what do politicians want to do? They want to stay in power all the time. Even when we get them in there, we get the right ones in there, how long, what happens? Think about it. People start making money. What do they want to do? They want to make more money. And then what do they do to stay in power? Then they're like appeased to other people, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people come in and they're going to do change. They get a taste of that power. Then they acquiesce in different ways or don't, you know, so it always happens. You see it.
Well, I think that and I'm more likely to see this in progressive politics, because that's where I live. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that there's nothing wrong with the kind of, well, that's too broad a statement. I don't see a particular problem with the kind of liberalism that Nancy Pelosi displays, even though she's an octogenarian or nearly so, you know, and you know, but progressivism keeps moving further, you know, into the future, and so people are going to get stratified. They're going to get locked into where they came into the fight, and that's the fight that they want to continue to have, even though the fight may have moved on. Right. And so they look archaic. But here's the thing. Like I've seen people on my side of the fence argue for term limits. And I'm like, well, we have term limits. They're called elections. But if we want to have a talk about getting dark money out of politics and campaign finance reform,
I know that's the one thing we need to be talking.
Right. That, you know, that's how we win that fight, is like, but like saying I want to replace Nancy Pelosi with someone younger is like saying, well, you know, I know the surgeon has 25 years of experience, but I'd rather have somebody that's fresher. You know, like I mean, there's a lot of things Nancy knows about vote counting and managing the House that somebody who's 29 doesn't know.
No, I'm not, but I don't think it's that, I'm not saying it's because of age that they get in there and they get stuck. I definitely think, yes, even on the right, it keeps going, the bar keeps going way more right. And on the left, it keeps going way more left. I even think about myself, like my views were very radical 20 years ago. And I'm like, I don't know if they'd be considered radical now. You know?
Right.
You know, I'm like, and look, but I do believe in a lot of the causes. Now, do I believe that everybody can relate? Because yes, do I believe in all the causes that they want and the changes? How are you going to make that change is a different thing. That's when you want to go to the elders, because they do know about that stuff of how to get people together. I'm like, right now, I'm about building consensus, right? To get things changed. But do I love the youth? It's got to be a mix. Do I love the youth and what they're about and their passion? Because I tell everybody, and you know, one thing I have been seeing, a lot of people that I grew up with that did have different points of views have changed with their kids. And I've seen that on Facebook, right? Like their kids have been making them. And I always tell people, I'm like, even before this, I'm like, I learned so much more from kids because their minds are much more open and they're passionate. We were the same way, but as people get older, you get desensitized, right? And that's what happens. So we have to remember about the youth, take that from the youth, and the youth need to take experience and understand that. But I've never seen so much generational divide until this decade.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'm a last year boomer. I'm 1964, right? So I'm on the cusp of
you're the cusp,
of that change. And people my age and older that I interact with on Facebook have they have and my mom falls in, and my mom's in her mid 70s now, right? So when somebody's having a particular social problem, and we work in counseling, so we see a lot of people that are butting heads with the Medicaid system or with, you know, like finding, she didn't recognize for a long time until I started working there that one of the problems that we're seeing, one of the reasons we're seeing so many people in for substance abuse counseling, for better intervention, for anger management, for parenting, is because in this community, we have a lot of families that are living 3 generations deep. It's the grandparents and their children and their grandchildren all living in the same house because these younger families can't afford to be out on their own. They can't afford to support their family. You can't divorce someone and afford your own place. That's a real problem. And like I fall into that same problem is I often don't see the same problems that people in their 20s are seeing. Yeah. Right. And I mean, I'm a middle-aged guy on Medicaid and Social Security disability. Right. And I'm butting heads with that system all the time. And it's incredibly frustrating. And sometimes what you want to do is just opt out. Just say, I'm not going to participate anymore. And so I can imagine being 22 and raising kids and having a health issue that requires you to interact with that system. I'm watching what people in their 20s are going through trying to get unemployment money right now, finding out that because I've been a tip employee and not a wage employee, that I'm going to get significantly less, even though I work just as hard as everybody that gets paid whatever the minimum wage is. I don't know how to have that fight for them.
If they're a freelancer, they're not getting unemployment, and
right. I'm a 1090. The little job I have is I'm 1099. So I'm not eligible for any of that assistance at all.
And a lot of that generation is the gig economy. They were really big on. They really took the gig economy. There's majority of is millennials and stuff. So none of them are getting unemployment because of that.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of issues and it's very multifaceted. And I definitely think with generations, we need to understand, because I think it's great what's going on right now. I'm an optimist. I think I loved your post. I was going to write something like, Corey, like you did, like where you wrote out all the great things that are happening with the protests.
I cannot take credit for that. I was a total steal, but yes, there's a lot of movement going on.
Put that out because I was going to actually put it out because I was so tired of but then I'm like, why am I going? I was literally tired of seeing people talk about, looting this and that. And I want to do a post like all these great, like I saw people saying what has happened with the protests. I'm like, oh my gosh, so much has happened. And then I saw you put that out there. And I think, there's so much change going at the same time. And it's all over the world. Like, yes, we want to make sure that the momentum doesn't stop and that real change happens. Like within these, corporations.
That's exactly what I was started thinking about. Like, it feels like a genuine cultural shift.
Yeah. Well, it starts
or a forced maybe, but
but they're, one of the big things, like, I work with organizations, and are they going to make real change?
Yeah.
Are they going to have the conversations? Are they going to, really do something? Are they going to change their executive leadership if it isn't diverse, right? So, but the fact that they're aware is the first step. Now we'll have to keep them accountable, right?
Right.
Their employees are going to. And I mean, honestly, at this day and age, one thing that is positive is that as long as and this could happen because, like I said, as you get older, as long as the younger generation where they're working makes sure that that is something that they're looking at and holds them accountable. Like they want to work at places like that, but are they really going to sit there and check, like, before I, say yes to this job, let me look at their executive leadership and do the research, and see the diversity and stuff. Because look, all generations, Gen X, like, we pushed in a lot of stuff. Every generation there's progress. Look, there weren't that many, mixed race couples when I was growing up. Gen X pushed that. They were like, screw that, and Gen X like pushed in LGBTQ, we were like fighting with our parents, and we were like, you don't like, gay people? We don't care. You have to accept them. Each generation comes in and there's more progress,
Yep. Even, well, because I'm active in the local Democratic Party clubs and caucuses, I will tell you that the people in their 60s and 70s who make up the bulk of people that actually attend, like, the West Pasco Democrats meeting, they're like, no, please, kids, please come take over because we're tired.
Yeah, they're tired.
We're exhausted. Please come tell us what you want. And the good news is that especially here, that's been happening. Like, a lot of young people are stepping up, and I consider Brandy and Kelly young people, even though they're in their 40s, right? But they're encouraging to kids in their 20s. I mean, we have some amazing young people running for office right here, right now. Danny Antonino is running against Amber Mariano for that state legislative seat, and he was at the Black Lives Matter protest on Main Street the other night. So we have a candidate for office that's saying, not only do I, am I lip service supported, I'll be out here with you. And Brandy Goyette, same thing. So I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see that happen, and I think that here's what I'm learning is there are some conversations that I shouldn't be having, and I'm happy to support the people that are willing to go have the conversation, but I'm not the right person for the job because, like Corey, I tend to get a little belligerent. Like, no, there's facts and data here. Like, you're denying facts and data, and that's a non-starter for me. That does, like, but someone like you steps into that same conversation with a very different approach and probably has better success than I do. So basically, I'm showing the younger activists where the minefields are. To watch out for co-option, watch out for a photo op. A county commissioner comes out. Like, one of the people that was invited to speak at this rally the other day is a county commissioner that posted a horrifically anti-Muslim tweet earlier in the year. And I'm sorry, I don't think we should be platforming that guy unless we know he's coming to say, I had this all wrong. Black Lives Matter is important, and I fully support making changes. Here are some accountabilities that we'll hold the sheriff, responsible for. Until they're ready to say that to us, why are we inviting them out to public events? That doesn't wash with me.
Yeah, it's not even inviting them. It's like engaging them in, like, asking the person, like, look, can you tell us what was going on when you sent that tweet? Just flat out ask like that, and not in this, because start the conversation to get them thinking about it. Because if we say you sent this tweet and you suck, they're not even going to listen. They're going to be like, oh, you're left. It's the media. It's this. Because that's what's happening.
But how can we have that conversation if they won't engage with us in that conversation?
And honestly, like, doorbell lickers are gonna lick doorbells, like the sorry, doorknobs. I got that one wrong.
Like,
and the thing is, like, he's a Trump acolyte, and he's literally like throwing out racist red meat to racist pieces of shit. So when you ask that guy, like, why did you do this? He did this perfectly cynically, right? Like, you don't ask a sociopathic serial killer why he killed people, right? We're not going to convince him not to kill people. It is identical.
Well, it
just is, and maybe that guy's kids down the road.
Let her reply.
But
But I know, I understand. Look, I'm not saying that I'm going to change everybody's minds. I'm not going to sit there and say that I'm going to change. Like I said, I don't go into the conversation, but I will put people on the spot when they are least expecting it and do it. And if I do it, it's emotional intelligence. If I ask a question in a kind way to them, how are they not going to answer me? Because they're going to be on, if I'm in a position, but if I go after them, but I'm like, I'm really curious here. What made you, like, what happened that day that you sent that tweet? That's different than why did you send this racist tweet, right? And if I had that conversation and I had it public.
Yeah.
And
I'd pay to see that.
And I had it public, what are they going to say in that? And now you're going to have some more.
Well, if you or someone can get Jack Mariano to have that conversation with you, I would love to hear it, but I'll bet he would not even respond to anybody asking him to have that conversation.
And he might not. Look,
he wants to feel safe and sheltered in saying it.
I'm not sitting there saying that we should let these guys. I'm saying let's hold them accountable. I'm trying to get, because I really think there should be politicians should go through emotional intelligence class. Okay? Because at the end of the day, you can sit here and tell me everybody's going to fight right, left. The way, if you work together as a team, this is business 101, you will be more productive and have better solutions, right? Because the thing is, we can sit here and we need to create solutions, but if we can't get the other side to agree on them, we're never going to get them through.
I think that, to your point, and I love that you brought up the word consensus. It's like literally the core function of the whole Moving Forward podcast that I do with Rio. And I
have some friends I know that are probably going to be pissed off at me right now for stuff I'm saying. But this is who I am. All love.
To get just to really hopefully give some extra juice to your point. I mean, like giving Republicans that are in office right now that space, I think is utterly pointless. It's like arguing on the internet. However, I think we do need to educate ourselves as voters and hopefully soon to be voters, if they're the youth, to be looking out for that, right? If they're not proving that they can, sit down and work to develop consensus around different ideas, then just don't fucking vote for it.
Congress can't do this right now, okay? Yeah. They can't, and that's the problem. And I used to say, look, Congress is a reflection of us. If we don't get it together, they're not going to get it together. So if we can't get along with each other, they're not going to get along with each other, right? And now I'm at the point, like, I don't even want to deal with like these leaders. Let's fix it together. Like, forget about these politicians. How can we come together? Because they're not getting anything done, right? But at the same time, we still have to deal with them. So how am I going to engage them? I'm not, if I can't bring, how am I going to engage them? They're city commissioners. You need to talk to all of them, right?
See, so I feel like
on everything.
I feel like this about that. When I hear elected officials referred to as them, as as that, I don't like that, because I feel it's us. It should be us. What are we doing to elect people that reflect us more accurately? Like, what are we doing? Like, they're us, and like separating them from us kind of makes it not our responsibility to fix them.
I agree. I agree with that. But like I said, at the local level, I mean, honestly, I feel like this might be, I've been wanting to, this is another thing I want to do, is give emotional intelligence workshops to politicians.
Right.
Because just really understanding how to communicate and how to collaborate and how to, like, really understand, like, because it would also change the tone. When you learn about emotional intelligence, you change the tone of the way you talk, because you understand your reaction, how to handle your reactions, about self-regulation and management of your emotions, and so I think that, because it's to me, it's like, it's ridiculous how I see politicians act with each other. Okay.
Right.
And look, these crazy, people that say outlandish things, until we vote them out.
See, that's the only conversation I think they're going to understand.
Well, look, until we vote them out, I'll focus on we still have to work with them. So until we get them out, and you're not going to get every one of them out at the same time.
Right.
Okay. So there's always going to be somebody there. So you have to, how do you engage them? Because you have to work with them.
Right.
or you're just going to have everything stall.
All right. I want to bring up something that, for those that don't know, I actually am a big fan of podcaster Mark Maron. He's an older stand-up comic who now does a podcast where he does astonishing interview work with a broad spectrum of people, from show business, from politics, from he interviewed Barack Obama in his garage. That's Corey, that's 5 years ago this week.
Really?
The interview that he did in his garage with Barack Obama in California. But
Wow.
I say this to say that his guest on yesterday's show is Mark Maron. It's the WTF podcast with Mark Maron.
Okay, got it.
Yesterday's guest was Stacey Abrams on the day of the Georgia primary, right? And so I mean, it was live. So she was talking about her personal problem voting on the day in Georgia, and this is a person that's invested, as we know, a great deal of effort into stopping voter fraud and voter disenfranchisement across the country. But anyway, she said yesterday that one of the things that was surprising when she started in 2014, learning why people in Georgia were not voting, right? When she started talking to people who weren't voting about why they weren't voting, one of the things that really surprised her is that it wasn't so much that they were disgusted or frustrated. It was that they were afraid of making a mistake, that they weren't knowledgeable enough about who was on the ballot or what the ballot initiatives meant, that rather than go and vote for something and then have people later go, oh, why did what were you thinking? They just don't vote.
I mean, and you do need education on that, because they trick you on the way they say.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Stuff like that.
And she talked about the difference. Like, if you live in Washington State, they mail you a compendium. Like, it's all of the ballot initiatives explained and the candidates and their platforms, and that comes with your ballot. So you have a period of weeks to look through it. And so, here's my thoughtful position on this. Yeah. In Georgia, it's a thrown together amalgam of things from little special interest groups that only mail out to their voters, right? So but I thought it was really interesting that the heart of her conversation yesterday was about the kind of the same thing I'm saying about, it's not us and them. They are us. And we are responsible for educating ourselves to make sure that the people that we send forth to make decisions for us understand, what we want from them.
No, you're right. It is not us and them.
There's lots of people that don't know that Catherine Starkey has a bad attitude towards homeless people. There's a lot of people that don't know that she told me in person, when I see homeless people in my neighborhood, I call the police. And I was like, do you think that makes their lives better? Oh, but it makes my neighborhood safe. No, it really doesn't. It makes them less safe. It divests them of everything they've ever had, because it gets left in a shopping cart next to the street when they get hauled to jail for being in your neighborhood. Right. Okay. But she really believes that. And I think it's important that voters understand, when I talk and they go, oh, she said that. Yes, she did. And you keep reelecting someone who holds that view. And so I try not to be angry in that conversation.
I know, but if I was at that conversation with her, and I'd be like, okay, but what do you think? Why do you think people are homeless? What are the main reasons? Because the majority of reasons is mental health. So what are we going to do about that? How are we going to make sure, how are we going to fix the problem so it doesn't come to your neighborhood, outside of putting them in jail? Because we know that half of it is mental health.
Yeah. So do you think I didn't ask her that question?
I'm sure you did.
She fled the scene.
She fled. Yeah. But
she ran away from the question.
But the thing is, they'll run, right? And they're not answering. But if we keep asking them,
right, and
if we make that a point, they're gonna have to answer. And that, but I'm like, if you're but I'm just saying, like, the thing is, the tactic is, as soon as we demand an answer, they come back and they call it media or this and that, right? And I'm trying to fight that idea of, if I ask a question, I'm whatever media, right? Because that's the whole argument right now with a lot of people, is the media is blowing out this portion. The media, every time there's something, it's the media. So if we come with different questions and come in a different way, people can't say that. They can't.
Well, they will. A few,
yes, like said that about me. That's I've been marginalized for asking hard questions.
Anybody I've ever seen saying, "Oh, it's just the media," is like, I can't use my brain parts to think things anymore, so I'm just gonna blame somebody.
All right, but to be fair,
I got a few data points. I got a few data points I gotta get into.
I mean, the left says that too. They say, oh, the media is a certain.
Yeah, no, I yell at them. I yell at them too. So the state in Florida bought 1 million doses of hydroxychloroquine and none of the hospitals want it. The current debt, which under Obama I believe was around 21 trillion, is now 55.9 trillion. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, well, I don't want.
I don't even know how to process that, but I wanted there's one positive one. In Georgia, the number of votes, even though the system is completely and totally screwed up, the number of votes between the 2016 primary and this primary is up by 30%.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
After 4 years of concerted disenfranchisement efforts on behalf of the Georgia governor,
Stacey Abrams and her team, they never stopped. Like that, the second that 2016 happened, they went to work. The second everything happened in 2018, they kept working. So just that's why I just desperately hope that Biden picks her for VP, because she understands how this works and what kind of fight. Val Demings is a cop. It's a non-starter, and she got appointed.
What are you talking about? It's a non-starter.
She got appointed. She got appointed in a district that went to Hillary Clinton by 20 points. Don't get me wrong. If they picked Val Demings, she's awesome, but she's wrong for this moment.
No, there's a whole case. My friend wrote an article in Miami Herald how she's so right, because she can do change. She can actually create change with the police because she was a chief of police. She understands the system better than anyone, and she can make
her AG
as vice president, and she can bring Florida because she has Orlando.
Let me interject and say how awesome it is that we're having a conversation about the relative merits
about which black
two
woman
amazing African American women for vice president of the United States.
I am a staunch Stacey Abrams supporter. But I like looking at
I love Stacey Abrams too. Don't get me wrong.
And seriously, if he picks Val Demings, I'm gonna have 5 seconds where I'm like, fuck, and then I'll be excited about it.
Florida,
for real.
Florida.
Like the idea though that she could bring Florida, I don't really buy it. Again,
no, she
her
absolutely
capacity
will.
for electoral politics. She got appointed. She didn't get elected to anything.
I understand what you were saying.
The only way Florida goes blue is South Florida and Orlando. That's it.
The I-4 corridor plus 2.
That's
she,
it.
She
I
wins
agree.
Florida.
I agree.
And she gets that.
I mean, I'm excited that you guys are excited about that.
I'll send you. My friend wrote an opinion on that in the Miami Herald, and it's great. My friend Kristen,
please do send it to us.
I would love to read it.
And he makes a really good argument for it. Just I want to tell somebody. Somebody asked, "How can I be optimistic?" Okay. The reason why I'm optimistic.
I'm glad you're answering that one.
Okay. Well, look. Corey made this post about how many great things came out of this protest. The fact that there's part of it that I don't want this to be lip service, okay? But I want us to keep the momentum. But the fact that so many people are protesting for not only one day, okay, 2 weeks straight around the world. Because around the world, they have the same issues, right? So the fact that people are raising their voices, and the fact that I just hated the way it happened to raise their voices, right? It was horrible what happened. And George Floyd is an angel that, his daughter said, my daddy said it changed the world, right? And I'm glad that his daughter can sees him that way, because it's true. But the fact that so many people have stood up and are talking about it, are not only protesting, but are having the conversations outside of Facebook, because they're having the conversations. People are checking themselves within their workplaces. The conversations are being had in the workplace. You can't, even the fact of, hopefully corporations make real change, and we don't want it to be lip service, but the fact that they're coming out, at least starting awareness, the NFL saying, I do believe, NFL came out and is saying, apologizing. They need to apologize to Kaepernick and bring him back. Okay, come on, we all know that. If you're going to apologize for everything, make your apology to Kaepernick. But the fact that there is so much conversation going on, there's great initiatives out there for change. People are really looking at, because they understand, if we're talking about police budgets, we got to get local, so I feel like eyes are on local government more, and people are becoming more aware of it. But I've seen a lot of people change. I have seen a lot of people check themselves, and look, the thing is, how can I be optimistic? I'm not surprised this happened. That's the thing. A lot of people are surprised. Black people aren't surprised. People of color aren't surprised. You know, this is not like, none of this was new. This didn't come out of anywhere the last 10 years. It's been around. We like, you know, everybody knows it's just because we have video. All of this stuff was going around. So the fact that people are talking about this, I said, like, white privilege and appropriation of culture, all of those are mainstream conversations, but I'm really excited about seeing people so motivated, right? I even think, like, I will say one of the best things, there's going to be so many great things that come out of this, and the that are coming out of this. People are organizing. So I just see it. I see conversations happening. There are so many conversations right now in Miami that are happening about this, with elected officials, you know, with, you know, community leaders. There's a couple of, I have like 3 different virtual events that I'm going to go to next week, you know, talking about this issue, but it's been being talked about, right? But now these things are at, people are taking more focus. Before it was just people of color. We were having these conversations, you know, now more people are talking about it. So I am optimistic about it. Like, I think that, you know, change is happening. It's so great to see it.
All right. Well, we killed an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to bolt because I have some things I have to get done today.
I got a proposal together.
I opted out yesterday for a day of isolation and cooking with the girlfriend. And so I have some work stuff I got to get done today.
Do it. Thank you very much, Arathi.
For those of you that tuned in to hear a science discussion, sorry about your luck. Like, I stopped posting the song thread every day because it seemed like Shit's on Fire Yo was more important than my trivia song kind of thread that I've been doing every day. Same kind of thing goes for the show. Like, on days when there are important things happening, we're going to kind of have to throw our focus there. And believe me, we want the distraction just as much as you do. I can't do that right now. So we'll try and have a science show next Friday. But I'm really glad that Arathi joined us for this conversation, because there's nothing, you know, what people really need is more opinions from 2 middle-aged white guys. So we're,
as usual. I mean,
you know, let me tell you what you need to do. You know, that's not where I want to live. So thank you very much.
Just get involved in local politics. That's what you need to do. That's my biggest thing to everybody. Go to those commissioner meetings.
Dave just called us science deniers.
That's brutal.
God damn it.
Doreen also brought up Tulsa. She's actually in Tulsa right now. She's bringing up thread. I don't think we talked about it.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just before we get off. Okay, this is a book called Two Nations, Black and White, Separate, Hostile, and Unequal. It's about systemic racism, and it has so much data in here. It was written in the 90s. Sadly, everything is still relevant, but it talks about in education, income inequality, you know, incarceration. And it's a good book to really not only get the data of systemic racism, but to understand the psyche behind it. And it was written in the 90s. And I took a class on this in college, but I did a Google search on it just to see if it was still relevant. And there was somebody that wrote, like, last year that this was being used in their Black experience class. And he said it was one of the best books, and it gets great reviews. But read this if you really, this will explain what's going on.
Right. And I also, I want to throw one more plug in for, if you have not sat down and watched 13th on Netflix, please do. And that was a world shifting moment for me watching that movie. I some of the things that he talked about, I remember being enthusiastic about when they happened. Like, I remember, you know, I remember that some of these politicians' words about sustaining this white supremacist, systemically racist system rang true to me when I was younger. Right. And I'm ashamed of that. And a lot of the reason I'm out right now on this issue is because I have a lot to atone for.
Okay.
Right?
But just as you grew and you had those, remember the people that you're talking to that have those views, points that you don't have anymore. Just remember that you've been in that boat.
Right. And somebody had to convince me.
Mm-hmm.
They had to change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mind is changeable. So
I guess,
Yeah.
That's good.
Come on. Wait, another thing, Corey, if you're Mr. Positive and all about gratitude,
when appropriate.
Hey, look, it's easy. Like, this is my thing. It's easy being kind to people we like.
Yeah, it's easy being grateful when things are going good. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's story of my life. Yeah. No, I ascribe to the Canadian bar school of social interaction. I'm super fucking nice until it's time not to be.
I know. I know you are a nice guy.
Well, I try. It obviously doesn't always work like at all. But the other thing with Tulsa, and I hate to end on this because Arathi, I should just let you mic drop, but I can't let this go. Juneteenth is coming up.
Yeah.
And Shithead is holding an event in Tulsa to commemorate. I don't even know if he knows about the fact that they bombed and what it was called, if I'm not mistaken, the Black Wall Street.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if he knows. Stephen Miller knows.
Yeah, exactly. It's trolling of the exact kind that had Reagan announcing his bid for the presidency, where white people got lynched for trying to support racial injustice.
It's voting. I'm not. Look, I'm sorry. Everybody gives him way too much lip service. We don't talk about him. He won't talk. Okay. He loves it. He plays into the media's hands all the time. I mean, the media play into his hands all the time. Don't get me started on that. Like,
all right. Well, now we have a reason to have you back on.
There you go.
Look, I'm sorry. The media, like he plays the media like a fiddle.
Well, they cover the fact that he says things that are absolutely unreal, and I know that's why he's saying it. But the media can't not talk about the fact that we've got a guy who's trying to be an emperor. No, that would be honestly, that would be total malfeasance. Anyway, we could talk about that later. I fucking love you.
Every 5 minutes, and that's all they talk about. Look, we all know, and it's not changing anybody's.
I watch news all the time. That's not in any way how that works, at least in the media that I'm
exactly
watching.
But the media that most people watch, they do.
Maybe.
That.
Okay. Yeah. Well, fuck them then.
Hey, all look, right. People look at Media Bias, and you'll find the best. Media Bias is a website, and you'll find the best media outlets that are the least biased, and it shows every media outlet, national, local, and global, and print and TV and stuff. And it shows like which ones are factual, which ones are left biased, which ones are right biased. And you can find the ones that are least biased.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys, that's hashtag coffee for today.
Sorry.
We've had listen, we've had some feisty shows this week, and that's all right. That's a good thing. Look at us having a reasonable conversation and still loving each other at the end of it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's kind of the whole idea, right?
Aren't we special?
So we're back on Monday at 10 o'clock with another hashtag coffee show. Have no idea who might be our guest. There are local Black Lives Matter facing protests this weekend in Newport Richey. There is one tomorrow downtown that's going to be organized by Marlo Jones and some other members of the African American Club and the local NAACP. There is a Sunday Black Lives Matter protest at the corner of Ridge Road and US 19 from 3 to 7 in the afternoon. So there's a lot going on.
Corner of Ridge Road and 19?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so proud.
Yeah. Well, every Friday morning for the last 15 years, Dan Callahan and Betty Jo Pasaquela and the other members of the Peace Action Committee have had a peace protest on that corner every Friday morning for 15 years at 8 a.m.
Yep.
Oh, that's why.
Antifa provocateurs.
Yep. Yeah. So
go out there one day.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, we have 2 local protests coming up this weekend. I know that next weekend, the African American Club of Pasco had to cancel their Juneteenth celebration this year because of COVID-19. And they've had one every year for as long as I can remember. So some other folks have organized a get together in Sims Park on Juneteenth. I think it's on the Friday. I'll have to, I'll post about it on the So Local Live website. But the point is, there are local places in Newport Richey, Pasco County, where you can go out and get involved. Mask up, be safe, take care of yourself and social distancing. But they need your voice. And it was a wonderfully diverse crowd on the corner of 54 and 19 last weekend on Sunday. Lots of folks from my age range and melanin level, and lots of young African American folks that I'd never met before. So it was a good day, and nothing bad happened. It was peaceful, and as I said, more people were masked up there than I've seen in any grocery store or restaurant that I've seen. So be safe, take care of yourselves, and get out there and make your voice heard for real sustained change. We love you guys, and Sasquatch is real.